This Elto quad right here was a gift from Larry Carpenter, who was a tremendous collector of outboards. He's been a collector for many, many years, and he's has had a lot of engines pass through his hands and worked on a lot of them. A terrific guy, and I think he did this somewhat to taunt me, because I'm not crazy about Evinrudes or Eltos, but this one is quite pleasing, and I've had a few that passed through my hands, which I quite like, but not many. It's a 1928 Elto quad, built up from two 28 Speedsters, I do believe they were called. Sort of an anemic engine, but this one produces quite well. I started out with this thing and I got it in original condition, and it was well, it was in pretty good shape. And I went through the ignition system, changed the condensers, which were both dead, and repotted them and put in new wires, that sort of thing, and tried to run it. It ran pretty good, and then it sort of faded out and quit. Not altogether, but ran on basically on 2 cylinders. I got it back, and it had a loose jug that was leaking air on one set, so I kind of figured that was a problem, and got around to trying it again. I'm not crazy about the knob starting. It was pretty difficult for me at my age. I'm 75, and it's the 2-cylinder version is quite easy to start with a knob, but the 4-cylinder version is a bear. So I fixed it I fixed the jugs, made sure they were good, and re-gasketed them all and torqued them all down, and made myself a rewind for the flywheel so I could start it a lot more easily, and I ran it again, and it ran better, but it still was erratic. It would run for a while and then sort of knock off on 2 cylinders, and we figured that there was some problems with the carburetors, and I tried pressurizing the tank, and that ended up in a fire, and not too bad. Nothing got burned up except my pride. And after that, some stuff came online. There's a fellow that's in the Midwest that's making these coil cases and offering, he has coils as well for dual firing, and I got a set of those, and I put it all together and put the ignition system together, and well, we got a chance to try it again for about the 3rd time. This is going on about 4 or 5 years. So I got it rigged up again this year, and started it up in the tank, and it ran quite well. I was quite pleased. It seemed to start and run quite well, and I said, well, maybe it was the ignition. So I put it on the boat, my Old Town 1932 C model, 16 foot. And this would have been an engine that would have very possibly been used on it. They started making this model in 1929 and made it for 2 more years to 34, and then they changed the design again. And prior to 29, it had a different design as well, a little bit different. So this is basically a 29 through 34 design, and this one is a 32. And this engine, I ran it on it this past week, and I was very pleased with the performance. For a 1928 engine, it was the biggest thing offered, and it ran quite well. Idled down quite well, ran quite well. A little quirky, a little kinky, but very acceptable. I'd trust the engine now. So my guess is most of my problems were centered around a ignition that worked initially and then got a little warm or shorted out or something internally. I have no idea what was going on with it because it tested fine. This engine is cools well, like I say, it idles well, runs well, and it starts very easily if you kind of follow the directions they gave you. It has a water cooling intake right here, and nothing on the backside. It's propelled out of there, and then it comes out, the water comes out right here, out of these holes. It's a water-cooled muffler. The spark plugs I've altered quite a bit. I've got D9s in the top, and I do believe that D14, 16 on this side and a 14 on the other bottom one. They all run a little bit different temperature, like the V45 does as well. And you basically look at your plugs and pull them out and change them as needed so they all look as close to possible as each other. I did have to make new tops for the carburetors. They were disintegrated. It's got dual batteries. That was the suggested way to rig it, and I guess it was rigged like that originally as well. And one of the drawbacks of this engine was it had no means for remote steering or remote throttle, and I've put in eyes on the one of the long bolts through, and some chain, so when they touch the head, these are hot heads, it doesn't melt the steering rope. I have also rigged a throttle, which is, you can see it right here, the wires going up to the timing vance, and I have a hand wheel over here to run it. You can see it. In a second, I'll do that. Works like that. And you can see it works quite well back there. It goes all the way, maximum spark. I've tried to advance it past what you can do with this wheel, and it just slows down. So it's a full range from dead idle to wide open throttle. So it seems to work quite well. And the boat, as I said, is somewhat of a match for the year. That would have been an engine that very possibly would have been used on that engine new, on this boat new. Oh, to go a little bit further with the carburetors, this is not a 3-port design, it's a 2-port design. It has poppet valves in the carburetors, very much like the more modern 2-strokes, which had reed valves in them. Instead of reed valves, this thing has poppet valves, which are heavier and obviously slower. They were very adequate for a low RPM engine, but when you start getting up around 5, 6, 7,000, they just float and don't work very well. But these both have ticklers. You push up from underneath, you push the valve up out of its seat, in all 4 valves. It's got a total of 4, 2 on the top and 2 on the bottom. So it does work well. You got a handle here that you need when you're starting it. You got to have some means of controlling it from the transom.